Special elections coming to the Brazos Valley. We have the latest on the amendments you'll be casting your votes on. Plus, an ongoing debate in the state of Texas, how teachers and CPS are talking to transgender teens as the legal battle continues.
And today, the storm system that brought us the rain continues to exit off toward the east, and that's going to leave us pretty quiet for the rest of the week. But by the weekend, there could be a couple of storm chances. Your 25 News starts right now.
Connecting the Brazos Valley, this is KRHD News.
Bryan police are searching for a suspect wanted for robbery. Video from a convenience store on March 4th shows the suspect displaying a gun to the store clerk. Shortly after, the suspect fled the scene with an undetermined amount of cash. Anyone with information should contact Bryan police at 979-209-5300. The longtime editor for The Eagle, Darren Benson, has been laid off from the newspaper. Benson was an editor for The Eagle for 16 years. He saw the paper named the Texas Associated Press Managing Editor's Newspaper of the Year under his leadership. Life Enterprises, the owners of The Eagle, and other local newspapers have laid off several top editors across the country in an effort to cut costs. Benson's role will be outsourced to the Waco Tribune-Herald's team. Yesterday, early voting opened up once again in Brazos County ahead of May 7th first special election. Folks can vote for two state of Texas propositions as well as two Brazos County propositions regarding service districts number 3 and 4 concerning the local and used sales tax. For those looking to participate in early voting for the election, voters should already be registered and will be required to bring a valid form of identification. More counties in the Brazos Valley have special elections underway. In Burleson County, Snook, Somerville, and Caldwell ISD school boards have opened seats up for election. Votes must be casted for these positions by May 7th. For those wanting to know more on the candidates in Caldwell, the community is planning a candidate forum for April 28th at the Caldwell Civic Center. If you're heading to the polls on May 7th, two amendments to the state Texas Constitution have been proposed. KRHD reporter Rebecca Fiedler shares how these amendments could affect your property taxes and public schooling.
Early voting has already begun as we draw closer to Election Day. Texans have the chance to vote for or against two propositions. The first reduces how much elderly and disabled citizens pay in property taxes to public schools. The second proposition increases the amount of property tax exemptions a person can receive.
I support the concept of lower taxes, clearly, but I'm quite concerned that the legislature only came up with a short-term answer to how to make up for the lost revenue.
Voters like Cecilia Hawkins are concerned that school districts will suffer if property taxes are brought down in this way. The Texas Tribune wrote that missing funds for schools will be replaced by the state government. But Hawkins questions, how long is that sustainable?
The state has to come up with a way to make up the difference. And I think a lot of people would agree with me that property taxes in the long run are not going to be the best answer for funding public schools.
Hawkins says she hopes this will be considered a bipartisan issue. Brazos County Republican Party Chair Eleanor Vasali says that while her party is in favor of lowering property taxes, there has been plenty of diverging opinions within the party on how best to do that.
These two amendments provide some area for relief, so I think people in general are supportive of that, but that doesn't mean that we are not going to keep pushing for more property tax relief for homeowners.
A former teacher herself, Vasali says the concept that schools might receive less funding isn't cause for alarm.
There is a level of administrative bloat in public schools, and the issue is no longer how much money they receive, but how it's being spent.
Both political parties are concerned that not enough Brazos Valley residents will get out and vote. For more information on how and when to get to the polls, visit brazosvotes.org. Reporting in Bryan College Station, Rebecca Fiedler, KRHD News.
Now to the fall over Title 42, a federal judge announced his intent to pause on the Biden administration's rollback of the measure. The decision, which allowed the Border Patrol to expel nearly anyone encountered along the southwest border using the threat of COVID-19 to deny migrants the chance to seek asylum, is set to expire May 23rd. ABC's Morgan Norwood has the latest on what's next, given the latest challenges to the policy.
A federal judge says he intends to issue a temporary restraining order preventing the Biden administration from lifting Title 42. It's the Trump-era public health order which allowed Border Patrol to turn away migrants to prevent the spread of COVID-19. The CDC had planned to lift Title 42 next month, prompting concern that it could lead to a flood of new migrants trying to cross the southern border. Republicans are holding up President Biden's request for more COVID-19 funding unless Title 42 stays in place. Some Republicans say they recognize the hypocrisy of calling for some other COVID policies to end while fighting for this one to remain.
You can make that argument, and it's hard to say that it isn't, but when it gets to be so immense, you probably ought to look at anything that is helping control the flow.
The judge temporarily blocking Title 42 as administration officials today outline their preparations for the end of the measure ahead of the May 23rd expiration date. The judge's decision just as the Congressional Hispanic Caucus met with President Joe Biden about Title 42 and a host of other immigration issues.
There's ample vaccines available. There is the ability to test and quarantine that work. And so Title 42 should be lifted and that we should focus on border management policy.
However, Republicans on Capitol Hill and some moderate Democrats want to extend the order, citing a lack of planning by the Biden administration for the projected surge in migrants. But the White House says there are mitigation plans already in motion.
The Department of Homeland Security has projected that there could be an increase in people coming to the border, and that's why they've had a multi-part plan and proposal and policy they've been implementing for months now.
And we're expected to learn more about those plans this Thursday when Alejandro Mayorkas, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, testifies before the House Judiciary Committee. I'm Morgan Norwood, ABC News, Los Angeles.
All right, topping the news feed, U.S. Supreme Court justices heard arguments about a controversial immigration policy today. President Biden wants to end a policy that lets U.S. border officials turn migrants away because of public health concerns like COVID-19. But critics say this is likely to cause a greater surge of migrants at an already stressed border. Well, family members of COVID ICU patients may emerge with post-traumatic stress disorder. That's according to a new study in JAMA Internal Medicine. Researchers surveyed family members in the months after a loved one was admitted into the ICU with COVID. The study found about 63% had significant symptoms of PTSD. Well, Beijing is now enforcing lockdowns and expanding its mass COVID testing efforts amid a new COVID-19 outbreak. While only 70 cases have been found since the outbreak surfaced on Friday, authorities have rolled out strict measures to prevent further spread. Well, it should now be easier to get the antiviral pill treatment for COVID. The White House said today it's increasing education outreach to both the public and doctors. They're hoping this will encourage prescribing Pfizer's pill to eligible people. Over the next few weeks, it plans to make this treatment available at nearly double the number of places. It also plans to federally support establishing additional test to treat locations. The pill treatment needs to be taken soon after contracting the virus. It's been shown to reduce hospitalization and death by around 90%. The Army is expanding benefits for pregnancy and parenthood. This will cover both birth and non-birth parents. A group of soldiers has been pushing for the changes that will now include more than 400,000 parents. Soldiers who give birth, adopt, have long-term care for a new child, or are single parents will now be excused from deployment and field training for 1 year. Soldiers undergoing fertility treatments will also be exempt from a permanent change of station for up to a year. An option for paying off payday loans isn't working as well as some had hoped. We're looking into why that help isn't getting to everyone who needs it.
Over 120,000 pounds of ground beef have been recalled by the U.S. Department of Agriculture over E. coli contamination concerns. The recalled items were produced from February 1st to April 8th. If you think you might have affected products in your refrigerator or freezer, check the USDA Mark of Inspection for establishment number 46841. If you have any of the recalled beef, throw it out or return it to where you bought it. No confirmed cases of E. coli from these items have been reported yet. It's not just food getting more expensive. The oil you use to cook with is also impacting your wallet. Cooking oil prices have been rising worldwide since the COVID-19 pandemic began, and Russia's war in Ukraine has sent those costs skyrocketing. Ukraine and Russia are the world's top exporters of sunflower oil. People in some countries are facing limits on how much vegetable oil they can buy at the grocery store. Restaurants that rely on cooking oil are also being forced to raise prices for customers. A new tool to fight Lyme disease is on the horizon. Pfizer says its latest experimental vaccine to treat the disease showed positive results. The company says it will start a new trial that will include children and adults. Lyme disease cases in the U.S. have tripled since the late 1990s. The rise has led to the CDC to push for new tools to prevent tick-borne diseases. Currently, there are no vaccines for Lyme disease on the market. Nearly 60% of Americans now have antibodies for getting COVID-19, many of them because of Omicron. The CDC says during the Omicron surge this winter, the percent of Americans infected with the COVID-19 saw a significant increase, with the biggest increase seen in kids and teens. Unfortunately, experts say they still don't know how long infection-induced immunity will last, which is why it's important to get vaccinated and boosted. Many hospitals and doctor offices around the country may not have the equipment they need to treat patients. The ongoing supply chain issues and higher prices have made it difficult for medical professionals to get their hands on wheelchairs, crutches, canes, and even exam tables. Right now, it's taking 2 to 3 times longer for medical offices to get much needed equipment. As a result, many hospitals are turning to non-traditional suppliers and often paying higher rates. Some healthcare centers have even resorted to asking for donations for equipment. Texas A&M University is no stranger to integrating virtual reality into education, and now VR has made its way into a new nursing program. The Texas A&M College of Nursing has introduced virtual reality to nursing students. This will help them gain hours of experience in patient care through VR simulations. Since launching in early 2020, nursing majors have had the option of 2 immersive simulations. Students have virtually explored the world of patient care, forensic nursing and screening, briefing intervention, and referral to treatment or SBRT.
It really helps increase confidence levels, especially with that screening, brief intervention, referral to treatment type of situation. Some of those questions can be a little bit personal and are difficult to ask, especially when you're asking somebody to admit if they have an issue with substance abuse or misuse.
The VR nursing simulations were designed and created through a collaboration with students in the Texas A&M School of Visualization and Architecture.
Taking a look at our Clark Roofing Cam sky in motion, kind of a cool shot here. You can see the shadow of the high clouds over the lower clouds on this. As the high clouds are moving off toward the east, The low clouds are moving northeast to southwest with the low-level wind flow. So again, kind of a cool shot there. No rain-producing clouds for us and not anticipating any for the rest of the week the way it looks right now. Showers and thunderstorms, few down here across South Texas, and then the system that brought us our rain, that continues to exit off toward the east and away from us. So here's what we got for you in your future track as we make our way through the overnight hours tonight. Looks like things will be pretty quiet. A few clouds will work their way back in by tomorrow morning. So becoming partly to mostly cloudy across the area, but shouldn't be anything too significant. Then as we head into the afternoon hours on Wednesday, again, partly cloudy skies and things should be relatively quiet around here as we just don't have any lift and moisture for showers and thunderstorms likely for the rest of the week. So tonight, temperatures will be down into the 50s for a lot of us, maybe a few upper 40s across our northeastern areas, and it looks like it'll be pretty cool to start off the day, but then we'll be up into the 70s and low 80s as we make our way into the day tomorrow. So should be pretty nice across the region. The wind won't be a problem either for tomorrow, but I do think it will start to pick up as we make our way toward Thursday and Friday. And looking at your forecast, those temperatures hanging out at 79 degrees Wednesday, 84 Thursday, and then into the middle 80s Friday. Next chance for a few thunderstorms could be rolling in here Saturday and or Sunday. We'll go isolated as of right now with highs in the upper 80s as the better chances will likely stay north and west of here. Then we could see a slightly better chance as a little complex develops, possibly late Sunday going into Monday. So we'll go 40% there as of right now. Keep it on the lower side and then scattered. And then tapering off to 20% Tuesday. And then as we head toward Wednesday, behind a cold front, 81. Then it starts to go back up into the lower 90s thereafter.
Every year, more than 12 million borrowers takes out payday loans. It's happening in the more than 20 states where this type of lending is allowed and interest rate caps are not in place. The interest rates on these loans can be nearly 400%. No-cost extended repayment plans are an option for paying off these loans in more than a dozen of those states. That means you could repay only the principal and fees that were already charged. Now, you would split that balance over several months. But according to the recent research from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, these plans aren't working as intended.
It's not surprising that these particular laws aren't working because we do know the well-documented research and harms behind payday lending in general. So it's not surprising that the product is still keeping people in a debt trap as designed.
The savings from a no-cost extended repayment plan can be substantial. Research from CFPB shows on a typical $300 loan, you would pay $45 in rollover fees every 2 weeks until the principal and fees are paid off. That means after 4 months, you would have paid $360 in rollover fees and still owe the original $300. If you entered a repayment plan after the first rollover, you'd only end up paying $345 over an extended period.
It seems like a lot of consumers don't know about these repayment plans. And again, the consumer eligibility really varies from state to state. So it would be difficult for a consumer to know without contacting their lender about the plans.
The Bureau also found that some payday lenders are deceiving borrowers by misrepresenting or withholding information about this option. The trade group that represents the payday loan company says they work to ensure every customer has a positive experience with their products, that the people are not only informed of their options, like extended payment plans, but take advantage of them as well. The Center for Responsible Lending is pushing for a 36% interest rate cap across the board on payday loans. There's a mushroom in the U.S. that's highly coveted by foragers, farmers, and upscale restaurants. Right now, the only way to find it is by searching through the woods under slightly warm and damp conditions. But Elizabeth Ruiz is looking into new efforts to help small farmers make money from this fungus.
We are in Missouri, where it is peak morel mushroom hunting season. We searched far and wide for a hunter willing to let us tag along as they search for morels, and well, they're a very secretive bunch, but we did speak with a mushroom expert as well as a mushroom farm about the value of selling mushrooms.
These fleshy, spore-bearing bodies of fungus are the bread and butter for Henry Helmuth's family-owned urban mushroom farm called Ozark Forest Mushrooms. The farm was started 3 decades ago in the Ozark Forest by Henry's parents. However, they've moved the majority of their operations to St. Louis, Missouri, because that's where the restaurants and grocery stores are that buy their mushrooms.
It looks like furry cauliflower.
Yeah, that's the one that people say tastes kind of like lobster or crab meat. It's just kind of like sweet, mild. It's mostly the texture, I think.
We sat down with Henry in the mushroom packing area, which was a louder space than we expected.
The fridge is kicked on and they're old and have rattly old compressors, so.
But he was still able to tell us the ins and outs of his business.
These are the Hanchaminchi. Right now we're growing blue oysters, king oysters, black pearl oysters, chestnut mushrooms, lion's mane, shiitake.
Most mushrooms cost about $10 a pound, but some sell for a much higher profit, like morels.
Right now, wholesale from Oregon, they're at about $45 a pound, and then it costs about $1.50 a pound to ship them.
The only way to get morels is through foraging companies. These 3 they have on hand were found by Henry's mother, who went mushroom hunting in a nearby forest. We had hoped to tag along with the mushroom forager, but as mushroom expert Dan Lyles explains,
people will turn their mother in before they will give up their morel hunting hotspots. Some people will take them to the grave. They won't tell anybody where they are.
not only are they delicious, but they sell for good money, mostly because it's not easy to grow them in a greenhouse.
They grow in symbiosis with a living tree. So all the mushrooms we grow are saprophytic, which grow on deadwood, which is a much easier process to replicate, artificially than it is to replicate growing something that lives in symbiosis with another living being.
People have been trying to reproduce morel mushrooms for a long time, and it's very difficult.
However, Michigan State University Associate Professor Trey Malone is determined to help small farmers make a better profit. His team of researchers was granted money from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to develop a plan for cultivating a morel mushroom industry.
There are two parts to this project that look at the supply side of mushrooms, so whether or not we can actually effectively grow them in greenhouses, and then the demand side of mushrooms, so where would these mushrooms be sold, who would these mushrooms be sold to, for what price?
The project is ongoing, and Trey is feeling optimistic they will come up with an effective plan to produce morel mushrooms at a commercial scale. But Henry says he's not holding his breath.
The science of it alone is tricky, and then to be able to grow them commercially will be another obstacle to overcome. So I don't think we're going to see a big morel industry for at least another decade, in my estimation. But I would love to experiment and play around with trying to cultivate them if I had more time.
For now, he's trying to make a living by continuing the legacy of his parents. In St. Louis, I'm Elizabeth Ruiz reporting.
Cool story, Elizabeth. Thank you for that. Well, Elon Musk is already talking about changes as he prepares to take over Twitter. Why fewer ads are just one thing you may start to see. Imagine if your child had a disease so rare, only a few people in the world have a similar diagnosis. Now imagine there is a cure, but it's not profitable for drug companies to produce the life-saving medicine you need. That's the reality for many American families right now. And as Chris Conti shows us, some are taking matters into their own hands.
Will you help mommy put them on?
Sometimes life's littlest steps
We struggle with stability. Wanna walk?
are simultaneously life's biggest milestones.
Good. One.
Such is the case for Henry Saladino.
We try to formally get in here at least for an hour a day.
We met Henry and his mom Mary on a good day.
They're all anti-epileptic meds.
The small pharmacy of drugs in their kitchen cabinet was keeping this 2-year-old seizures at bay.
Open. Kapinga. Whatever it takes.
Born right at the start of the pandemic, Henry's doctors soon diagnosed him with a rare disease called alternating hemiplegia of childhood, or AHC.
There are 10 genetic neurological diseases associated with the gene that Henry's mutation is on. Medicine time is all done.
Maybe 25 other kids in the entire world share the same genetic mutation.
Our disease is called the human time bomb disease because any symptom could hit at any time.
Ba ba ba, that's right. Sheep says ba ba ba.
Aside from seizures, Henry will often suffer from temporary paralysis,
Where's Tiger?
which takes away his ability to breathe.
It's really awful to see.
But there is a catch to all of this.
Henry's turn?
Caveat, if you will. Doctors believe the science is out there to help Henry. No pharmaceutical company, though, will test a drug just for one person.
I think I try not to live in this space of being mad about that. I think we have to find hope in the fact that the science is out there. Next page.
So Mary Saladino is on a mission, working to raise nearly $3 million needed to pay a pharmaceutical company so they'll test and produce a treatment for her little boy.
It's just the realization that it is that expensive, and also that we can do it. So if I'm told that money is the biggest hurdle, I'm going to find the money.
I think these efforts are incredibly important.
Dr. Christelle Akar is one of Henry's doctors. His condition may be rare, but efforts to find a cure for Henry could have a much larger impact than just him.
It might sound like one treatment for one person is not necessarily, gonna change things on a big scale. It is really paving the way for all of us to think, it is bringing bigger groups together to try and think about treatment.
More mama, okay.
Even if scientists can't find a treatment for Henry, they'll have provided a roadmap for other families struggling with other rare diseases.
We're learning about epilepsy and genetics and treatments, one patient at a time, and every single patient matters.
For now, and for Henry, each day brings with it a new milestone.
That's a kiss. Oh, thank you.
Trying to move closer to a cure.
You're doing a good job.
One step at a time.
It just hasn't been done yet. So I think that yet is the hopeful space we have to live in, and we're pushing for it.
I'm Chris Conti.
I did.
Chris, thank you for that report. Well, mannequins are typical for healthcare worker training, but a new type of simulator is helping to have better birth outcomes.
The idea was, let's actually be able to have live people for invasive procedures.
How this birthing simulator is working to improve communication.
States across the U.S. continue to come out with anti-trans laws for our youth. Here in Texas, Governor Abbott demands any licensed professional with knowledge of a child receiving hormone care report it to Child Protective Services. Now, teachers are under pressure with how to talk about it with kids, and CPS workers walking out on the job. In-depth reporter Nick Bradshaw has more.
Here at the Whistle Stop Playground in Temple.
I just didn't feel right with what my birth name was. I wanted to do something more gender neutral.
A day on the playground.
Then that just feels like your entire identity, then no one cares.
This walkout was planned over a week ago. Now, all to support a trans student here at Temple High.
Cohen, a Temple High School student, was part of a walkout in September.
I just want to see people treated equally and just with respect. I don't want everyone to believe the same thing. I just want everyone to be civil towards each other and try to understand each other. It's my personal journey is just I'm growing up and I'm understanding the world more, understanding myself more, and I don't really have an idea of what I'll be like in the future, but I'm just going with the flow right now.
In Texas, where high school football is life,
I was raised to respect people.
The train to equality and love has seemed to come to a stop with anti-trans laws.
It was very slow, so I didn't understand exactly what was happening until she told me.
Cohen has been questioning their pronouns.
And I didn't really know what the LGBT community was until probably I was 11 or 12, and that's when my mom started transitioning.
The last several months has been a difficult ride. You recently quit your job.
Sir, a directive from Governor Abbott came down to through our commissioner that they will start receiving cases for gender-affirming teens.
Kelly Davis, who has worked for the Texas Child Protective Services,
We had received an intake on a Friday. By Sunday, the parents had left the state.
He said it was time to quit.
It seems, sir, that the only reason was that single word.
And that single word being what?
Trans. Unfortunately, it seems to be a hot button. And sir, we were doing the wrong thing. We were in these homes with no right to be there.
Some call this child abuse, though.
To tell a child the opposite, that I cannot get you medical care, that I cannot get you psychiatric care, or that you will be like this, or you will act like this, or I demand you do this. To me, sir, that is abuse.
The Texas AG's office has defended the bill. At the same time, CPS workers are walking out.
And on Friday, I'll be the last person in my unit. We normally have about 4 to 6 people.
In Temple, looking for true love.
A student commented about me in class because the teacher had said something to me, and he corrected her and said they. She asked me what my pronouns were and asked me if she would like me to use them in class.
They admit moments like that make them feel accepted.
I was very surprised. I was like, that's so nice of her.
I'm Nick Bradshaw reporting.
This
Clouds and radar today, not showing too much here across the Brazos Valley as the rain has pushed away from the region. You can see the showers from yesterday. That's all the way over into parts of Alabama and Georgia now. And there are a few showers left over across South Texas with clouds creeping up here across West Texas. And some of those will start to surge our way over the next 24 hours or so. So let's take a look at that in our future track, showing things will be pretty quiet around here. But then notice how the clouds start to move in as we head toward Wednesday morning. This is stopping here at 7 o'clock. It'll be dry, but there will be some low cloud cover here and there. Then as we make our way into Wednesday afternoon, partly cloudy skies. Highs will probably be 79, 80 degrees. Should be pretty nice across the area as we head into Wednesday. And taking a look at your forecasts, lows tonight. How about 50s for a lot of us? Even showing some upper 40s near Centerville and Madisonville. So it is definitely going to be a coolish night for late April. But then we're back up into the upper 70s and low 80s. Not much humidity again for tomorrow. So it's going to feel really good outside like it did for today, with some of that sunshine coming in into the afternoon hours. And your 10-day forecast showing that 79 turn into 84 on Thursday, Friday at 86. Lows will be creeping up closer to 70 degrees as we head into the weekend. As we get the moisture back, wind will start to increase as well out of the south, especially by Sunday, into the 15 to 25 mile per hour range. Isolated thunderstorms will be possible here. And there could be a slightly better chance for some scattered storms on Monday.
Anti-Semitic incidents reached an all-time high in the U.S. last year. Those findings were released today by the Anti-Defamation League. Now, there were more than 2,700 incidents of assault, harassment, and vandalisms against the Jewish community. That's averaging more than 7 incidents a day. Many of them happened around the time of war between Israel and Hamas. But experts say there's been a rise in hate crimes against all groups throughout the pandemic.
This isn't something that we should consider, oh, let's let this blow over once the COVID-19 happens, once COVID-19 is over. But it's something that really we should take into consideration in trying to figure out how do we respond to this so that it prevents such similar incidents from taking place in the future.
The report found there were increases in anti-Semitic attacks in a number of places. Jewish community centers, synagogues, as well as colleges, with the largest rise at K-12 schools.
But it's also a problem that schools need to figure out how to address, because kids that are so young in age, that are so vulnerable, are unlikely to go straight to a police officer. They're more likely to go to a trusted friend or a trusted teacher or a trusted principal. And so it's important for schools and colleges and universities to start thinking about who should these kids go to? What does the reporting process look like? And should it reach the level of a crime, let's make sure it does absolutely go to law enforcement.
Janice Uwama studies hate crimes. She says they're underreported and often just reported as violence if a victim comes forward. She says people think it's only happening in big cities, but that's actually where there is the most cooperation between law enforcement, local Jewish communities, and organizations like the ADL.
We already noticed that there are some trends with the FBI reporting that some law enforcement agencies no longer want to report hate crime data, which is a huge concern for us, because the FBI hate crime data allows us to better understand the size and scope of the issue in order to address it and create some evidence-based practices that simply focus on those targeted areas.
With all the cybersecurity job openings, some recruiters have a new focus.
So you need more people who are in that mindset and who could think like a criminal to be able to face off against a hacker, because all a hacker is a criminal.
How the formerly incarcerated are getting a second shot because of this. President Biden has granted the first 3 pardons of his term. One is for a Secret Service agent who was convicted on bribery charges, and 2 others who were convicted on drug-related charges. Biden says all 3 people have demonstrated their commitment to rehabilitation. The president is also granting shorter sentences for 75 people involved in nonviolent drug-related crimes. As part of the announcement, the White House also has a new plan to help those re-entering society after incarceration. $145 million will go toward connecting people to jobs, housing, and loans. It will offer skills and education training, paid work experience, career counseling before and after release, and a pathway out of loan default for those looking to go to college. Well, people who have been in prison are also being recruited to fill some of the tens of thousands of cybersecurity job openings in the U.S. Chris Stewart shows us why the people working to get them hired say they're uniquely qualified.
A lot of the time when people talk about hackers, you see this, a guy in a hood in a dark room typing on a computer. The idea of hacking is so much more than just a computer now.
It's bigger. And the more we get into technology, the bigger it gets.
We're here talking with cybersecurity instructor Ida Bird-Hill. She teaches the people who will one day be tasked with keeping your info safe.
I just think that we're naive just because we're safe. And we take our safety for granted.
About 90% of data breaches aren't as high-tech as you might expect.
Cybersecurity is really not 100% techie. I would say it's probably more emotional and psychological than people think.
One example, when we get an email saying a new expensive item is being shipped to us, hackers are playing on our fear that we've mistakenly ordered something. We're driven by our emotion to click on the hacker's link. At Ida's school, Automation Works. Her mission is to create diversity in an industry that is 75% white men. Separately, she says the industry can benefit from embracing those who've had run-ins with the criminal justice system. We asked Malia Salam about that. Her organization, Detroit at Work, helps those who have left prison find jobs.
Martha Stewart is she's a returning citizen. There are all sorts of people who, have a criminal or felony background, but they have viable skills, they have integrity, and once they pay their debt to society, they deserve a shot.
So you need more people who are in that mindset and who could think like a criminal to be able to face off against a hacker, because all a hacker is a criminal.
And as we did research for this story, hey, Louis, how are you? Thanks for doing this. We heard about a man named Louis DePayne. Did you at that point in your life consider yourself a hacker?
I never really bothered with labels.
He knows the hacking scene firsthand.
Hacker certainly fits.
20 years ago, he spent time on house arrest after the feds busted him for playing a role in an effort to hack a phone company's software.
You can read from a textbook, you can learn from a textbook, and you can apply textbook examples to real life, but a security incident, especially one, let's say 5-10 years from now, it's not going to be in a textbook. So you need people who can think outside the box.
The White House has urged companies to fill the estimated 600,000 empty cybersecurity jobs in the U.S. Concerned a gap in workers will make it easier for hackers. Many times, cybersecurity jobs pay more than $100,000 a year, and to Ida, that is an opportunity.
To go from $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year to $100,000 is a major lifestyle leap. And it impacts your children, it impacts the people around you, it changes a community.
A chance not just to defend our nation against an increasing threat, but help it grow from within. In Detroit, I'm Chris Stewart reporting.
Cities are rolling out new strategies to build more housing faster. Tomorrow, we're looking into the approach that's working to incentivize new development and create affordable housing. We've all experienced language barriers at some point. For medical professionals, those barriers and other cultural differences can actually affect their relationship with a patient. Chloe Nordquist shows us how healthcare workers are learning to better communicate during these intense moments.
Nurse, can I get a help? Can I please have a nurse, please?
This is all a simulation.
She said it hurts a lot.
Meant to help train nurses and doctors in any scenario they might run into when delivering a baby.
You're going to feel just 2 fingers. I'm just going to check your cervix. A little pressure.
If something happens to your baby, it is devastating.
Oh yeah, baby's ready to come.
By using simulators and actors, we can practice some pretty difficult hand skills, but in a safe place.
And that's where new tech can help, expanding beyond mannequin simulators.
This takes all the technology of a mannequin and all of the important pieces of working with a live human and puts them together.
Good job, baby, good job.
Different languages, different cultural pieces. You're working with different races and ages, and so that's something that you just can't get from a mannequin.
This tech can simulate problems during pregnancy and train medical teams how to communicate more effectively.
And cut right in between those two.
And that's really what these wearable simulators do, is allow that true, authentic replication of the clinical experience in multiple settings.
Amy Copperthwaite helped design the device and has others such as a wound care simulator.
The idea was, let's actually be able to have live people for invasive procedures.
It's okay. It's all right. It feels like it's coming. Yes, it's coming.
Each year, about 700 people die during pregnancy or in the year after, according to stats by the CDC. 2 in 3 are preventable. Another 50,000 have unexpected outcomes of labor and delivery with health consequences.
Many of these deaths could be preventable. And so if we could practice as providers and clinicians in a safe, simulated environment, we could potentially recognize risk factors and recognize warning signs and practice those emergency situations over and over again.
For nursing students like Michaela Abrams, this can make all the difference.
It exposes you firsthand without embarrassing yourself in front of a real person.
Along with confidence, it helps with communication.
The communication with the couple also not being able to speak English with the mom, I think is very helpful because you'll run into many diverse people. Communication is everything, especially in healthcare, because it's not to be dramatic, but kind of be dramatic is life or death because somebody's life is on the line and things can happen very quickly.
As technology becomes more integrated in the healthcare simulation space, Copperthwaite hopes to see this used in more training scenarios.
And that's really what these wearable simulators do, is allow that true, authentic replication of the clinical experience in multiple settings.
I'm Chloe Nordquist, reporting.
Thanks for watching Krhd News at 6. I'm back tonight at 10. Until then, have a good evening.